Just in case you were concerned that we may not all three be back together for the Chiefs' regular season finale, we were just discussing ludicrous lyrics just before the show began. So yeah, everybody, Seth's back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Think it would be factually incorrect to say we're at full health for this edition of Only Weird Games, but happy 2025, the first of a new year, and Seth would like to do a poetry reading for us, I believe.
You must have eyes on your back because you got money to the ceiling, and the bigger the cap, the bigger the peeling, the better I'm feeling, the more that I'm chilling, winning, drilling, and killing the feeling. Ludacris was an artist.
Was?
Touche. I assume anyone that was successful when I was in high school is either dead or Paul Rudd, who's just around, and still very successful and handsome and looks actually younger than he did when he was on Friends, which I know everyone's freaked out about. But every now and then, Nate and I were discussing Ludacris. Some of the lyrics to some of these songs I haven't heard in years and years because, if I can't play it in a independent Baptist church, why would I even listen to it, honestly? But,
exactly.
If it can't be played on a piano and nothing else, why would I even listen to it? Anyway, I heard the lyrics to What's Your Fantasy for the first time in a long time recently, and I thought to myself, our parents were deeply irresponsible for what they allowed. It's like, all the parents that Eminem was mad at, they kind of had a point. Like, now that I'm pushing 40.
Are you saying Congress was right?
I think they might have been. I think, was it Dick Cheney? He had a point. Which, you know what? Josh, why don't you say things now? Josh is gone. So thank you to everyone for being so patient with me right now. I am still sick. Josh and Nate carried on in my absence, and honestly, I'm sure the show was better for it. But it is astonishing to me as I'm sitting here all cold medicined up. Who knows what I might say today? But that was what we were discussing beforehand, and I just really appreciate everyone letting me take a sick day on Tuesday. And I'm just excited to be back to talk about the Chiefs and football.
Is that final point for somebody, or...
Look, I don't even know anymore. I don't even know.
Let me do something very nice to start off the new year of this lovely podcast, and that is to give thank yous and shout outs. Okay, now I don't want this to go to either one of your guys' heads, but I met a lovely woman named Karen at the airport coming back from Pittsburgh. Her family converged in Pittsburgh for said Christmas Day game. Thanks, NFL, bringing families together. But I think what Karen was telling me was like her brother was a Steelers fan. She grew up a Chiefs fan. Long story short, they all got together, said hello to mom. Mom's doing well. Said she loved the show, and says she loves you both, and I need you all to don't make it weird.
Did she give a ranking of who she loved the most, or did she did she have a favorite between maybe just me and Seth? I mean, she was talking to you, so I think.
Yeah, obviously biased. She's going to say Nate first, but I mean, she had to, right?
Right,
she had to.
Even though we know that's not true, she had to.
And did it in front of Holly and Hayden. It was she did me quite a solid.
Yeah, that's really with a kid too.
Coming back from Pittsburgh. Yeah,
that's nice. That's nice. That's a big dad boost right there. I think
it was really nice. Seth, she loves the show. She loves that you're a part of the show. And I don't need you guys to make it weird, okay?
So what I'm hearing is she likes me best. I mean,
Well, that's interesting. That's not what I heard. When Nate,
I
said
think
that,
Nate
that's
was
actually
done.
not
I
what
think he was
heard.
done talking, and what I'd picked up on was he was just looking for a way to be done with the story.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely two
No.
reads of this, and then you and I can break it down because we don't have the answer key. I think the two paths there were either she told Nate that she loves the show, and Nate extended that to Seth,
Yes.
who she
And I-
also loves on the show, leaving one
Other.
sort of absence.
Relatively, yes.
Alternatively, maybe Nate was saying, Seth, she loves the show, which includes you. But Josh, she thinks you do great work.
And I'm gonna let the audience decide. Now,
You don't. The only other wrinkle of this is that you guys have no idea how familiar I am with knowing that I am the least favorite.
no, come on.
Listen, I'm mint chocolate chip, baby. If it's your favorite, maybe it's your favorite. But a lot of people don't like mint in their ice cream, and I get
No.
that. I get that. I'm comfortable with that.
No,
I'm also, by the way, I'm actually talking about me amongst my three siblings, myself included. It had nothing to do with you guys in the show.
I can confirm that.
Chloe,
Right,
I mean,
with
Chloe's
parents.
definitely won one. I think my brother
So-
knows that too.
So a couple more. No, I want to give a shout out to Noah Morgan. He saw me before Chiefs Chargers, I believe. Very nice. Obviously we've got Chris and Leah. They know who they are. There was an employee named Andrew inside GEH Field at Arrowhead Stadium. He said a lot of nice things. Loves the show. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are too many employees that receive paychecks from Clark Hunt that listen to this beloved podcast.
We love you
Protect their
too,
identities.
citizens.
Yeah, and look, I took, Holly took Hayden and I to the Charlie Brown Christmas concert via the Kansas City Jazz Symphony at the Kaufman Center. And look, Alexi said really nice words. It was great. I know I have been slacking off on or not doing my part to give back to people who have recognized us and are so grateful for us to be a part of their lives, which again, as I say, that sounds really weird. But no, I just figured we should do 2025 right, which is just to say thank you to everybody.
Yes, thank you,
And-
everybody.
And yeah, I don't know the last time I had mint chocolate chip, but apparently, Josh, you're in style right now, my guy.
See,
Yeah,
I'm
mint
looking right-
chocolate chip is great.
I'd like to say
It's-
thanks specifically to Go KC Forever, who says, Josh, you're my favorite. Thank you. I'd like to say thanks to MC Kennedy, who says, Josh, you're hilarious. Thank you. No thank you to Zach Byers, who says, Josh is easily top 4 in the podcast. Thank you, Zach. I mean, you didn't say that I'm
He's
4,
incorporating Tucker, obviously.
so
yeah,
easily,
obviously.
easily. Go KC says Nate's my favorite too, so that's sort of confusing. All right, we can call it there. If Nate, you could just text me what the order was, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, no problem at all.
I'm just not. I just don't know if I emotionally can handle finishing behind Josh again. Like 2 of my kids already like him better, and like
Yeah, that's huge. That has really
Yeah.
that alone has.
I
Definitely
hadn't
carried
considered that.
Golly.
My ELA, my expected laughs added, it really went through the roof once I started winning over Kaiser children.
No,
one
that
by
was-
one.
Golly. It was such a sincere moment too. For listeners who don't know, and we're gonna get to Chiefs football here, but seriously,
Are
I
we?
will never forget
I was
my
ready for it.
beloved daughter Isabel, just like being like, "Oh my goodness, Josh is so funny. Like you're funny too, but Josh is like." And I just remember, I watched Jazz, and I knew it was bad because I watched Jazz go. Look at me, because I mean, there's a lot of things like. There's a lot of things that you can be, man. You can be more successful. You can be better looking. You can be in better
Yep,
shape. You can be richer. I don't care. do not make my wife or daughter laugh more than I do. Like, that is easily the only time I've ever been jealous in 17 years of marriage. I remember looking across the room, and Jess just sitting there chatting with a good buddy of mine, a guy named Mike, hilarious guy. And she was like throwing her head back and laughing. And I remember, like, I was just like, oh, we're going to go home. This is it. We're not staying
You went
here.
outside and started the car and then came in and you were like, hey, we got to go.
Yeah, we got to go. We're ready to leave. Hey, we're ready to leave. Unless you want to laugh more at his jokes, since you just laugh at everything everyone says, woman.
Well,
Like,
I can all but guarantee that the next 50 minutes of everyone's life will be absolutely laugh-free because it is time to talk about Carson Wentz and who? We'll figure that out as we go. I thought there was some legitimately relatively not like, playoff impactful, but just sort of real life interesting stuff in some of the pressers today. We got some coordinators and assistant coaches, some pretty good stuff about Carson Wentz that I can have us revisit here in a little bit. But Nate, we said on Tuesday that we'd get a couple of press conferences in, and we'd come in on Thursday, and then you would give us the starting lineup. That's not true. What do you think? What do you think you've learned here? We've got a couple injury reports. McCole Hardman back in the mix, but probably not playing in this game, according to Andy on Monday. Do you have a hunch on the call up, other than Chris Oladokun, who seems like he has to be one of them?
Yes.
What are you thinking? Whose status may have changed in your mind since these last couple of presser days?
Yes. So because you can only elevate two people. One has to be Chris Oladokun, so that he can back up Carson Wentz. We want Carson Wentz to get through the game, because that'll be, interesting to observe. Yes, Cal Coffey says Steven Nelson time, maybe, or Justin Ross time.
I can't do that again.
Or Keontae Ingram time?
You got to have another running back, man. Somebody's got to carry the football.
It's going to be tricky as to, again, in terms of who's not on the active roster right now. So you have, practice squad elevations you can do, but you can only do so many, or so few is actually the way you should be looking at it. And that's a lot of guys.
It's I have a thought on this.
Go ahead.
It's kind of an interesting thing, and I've been back and forth. Is it a bad thing how many players we feel like the Chiefs might need that we would just as soon not play on Sunday? Is that a bad thing in terms of man, they're just really reliant on a lot of different guys? Or is it a testament to a roster they've built that they really have a lot of guys that they really value that they would be worried about getting hurt? And I think it's kind of like a glass half full or glass half empty thing, but you really could view it as they really have built a roster where, their fourth safety is a guy that they just as soon not get hurt. It's just kind of an interesting thing in terms of there's so many guys. If they were allowed to forfeit, which they're not, by the way, that's not a thing in the NFL. The people who ultimately run the NFL are the TV overlords because they pay the NFL many billions of dollars.
Yes.
And so they have a TV slot to fill with lots of commercials and lots of whatever. So you can't just be like, nah, we're not going to play.
It's a better evaluation. It's a better evaluation platform than the preseason, though, because the other team is trying the whole way through. I laughed out loud into my muted microphone at Ronson Trade's comment of, "I need to see Ethan Driscoll on punt coverage just so I can see that big boy run down the field."
You know what?
I mean,
put him in gunner. Let's go.
Put him in gunner, and let's see if the Broncos, I think it's probably Mims who returns their punts. Let's see if that dude can concentrate with Gigantor running at him full speed. That would be legitimately intimidating. There's just so many interesting things. There are people that we're legitimately interested in seeing. My big one, I commented on this on Tuesday when I was deliriously cold medicine-y in the comments instead of deliriously cold medicine-y appearing on the show. Man, cold medicine's great, guys, especially for a Baptist. Just
Got
like
a
the
comment
closest
here
thing.
from Luttrell that says Seth would be higher, but he charges too darn much for his newsletter. Fact check, Luttrell. Seth couldn't be any higher right now. Not safely.
So the thing that's interesting to me, Jaden Hicks, put him in the Justin Reed role, see how he does, because that's going to matter for offseason decision making.
And he has to play. He just has to. You're a fourth round rookie. I'm sorry. You have to play. Here's what I think, right? I don't want to say this is a make or break game for Nico Remigio. That would be unfair. But if he wants to have a uniform for the divisional round, a good performance Sunday can go a long way with the assumption that McCole Hardman could be available to sort of reclaim his role, right? Pretty big day for Kingsley Suamataia, who I think should be playing right guard. I think it should be. Here we go. Here's what it should be after the second snap. Because what's going to happen on the first snap, kids, me and Josh talked about this. Hey, there's Trey Smith, Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey. Yay, get off the field. It should be DJ Humphries. Mike Caliendo should stay at left guard. What's the name? What's the boy's name? CJ?
Norzad.
Norzad?
You went Norzad or CJ Hansen in the middle? Up to you.
Either
Pick
one. It really don't
was
matter.
drafted a lot higher.
No, okay, Norzad, whatever.
I think he can snap. I haven't seen it personally.
Then Kingsley, then at right guard, then Ethan Driscoll at right tackle. Now again, I don't know if how much you can do that, because like you only usually have 8 to 9 offensive linemen even in uniform. So hey, you might have to eat that non-star Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney. But yeah, that's the offensive line for Carson Wentz, who again will be handing the ball off. A human rights worrying amount to Carson Steele, who will be throwing the ball to Nico Remigio, who will be throwing the ball to Peyton Hendershot, and will be throwing the ball to Justin Watson, maybe Noah Gray.
So is this where like Justin Watson made a couple of great plays against the Steelers, so I say this mostly tongue-in-cheek. Is this the time to play a little 3D chess of your Veach and be like, hey, Andy, we do have to play Justin Watson 100% of the snaps, and boy, if he rolled his ankle and wasn't able to take like 70% of the snaps in the divisional round, boy, would that be a shame. Like, I like Justin Watson. Just...
What are you gonna mafia knife him in the second quarter?
He belongs on the field, but Andy can't not. He can't have a healthy Justin Watson and not play him 65, 70% of the snaps. I think he might have against Pittsburgh. And honestly, he had a good catch.
He had a great
nice
day.
play against man coverage.
I
know.
He
sorry.
gave you a deep ball and a quarter route. Get out my face.
Here's another interesting aspect to this, though. Like, poor Carson Steele. It's like, buddy, you need to be icing before the game. And after.
Yes.
But, like, don't you also, if you're the Chiefs, and I know that they've said, wow, DJ Humphries is a veteran, we don't really care. Like,
Andy Heck said that today. That was the most interesting like news note of the day, I think, is that Andy Heck was asked, like, how bad do you need to see him out there? And he was like, I don't know if I need to.
Do you think, well, here's my thing.
Why
do you think he
not
was
need
lying? Do you really think this man was like, I don't even see him?
Andy Heck walked off on nonsense today. I mean, he got asked a decent question, gave a non-answer about Kingsley or somebody, and then left. So, no, I mean, I'm never assuming that press conferences are under the veil of truth. I don't think that's a good
I feel
way
like
to
my man
do
was
it.
just like straight up lying to us. And I said, come on, coach, at least try.
Like, we need to see if he knows, like, the cadence now.
Right.
It would have been an easy thing to not lie about if he's been practicing. So he could have just been
Right.
like, yeah, and we'd like to see him. Yeah, sure, it'll be good to get him out there. You know, we'd like to see him play some.
I just... So, for one thing, the Justin Watson thing was a pure joke, and I'm sorry.
Okay, Tanya Harding.
You know who should get
Seth
98% of the snaps out there? Let's go 90% of the snaps for number 90. Hey, Charles Minahu, Seth wants you to prove it.
No. No, please don't. Iced Pyro. Seth, the amphetamines are showing. Yes. I'm not. The cold medicine, it's going to win the day. It's less than
Minahu,
ideal.
Troops, Jim Bros, Justin Watson. That's
Oh,
the
dang
hierarchy for Seth right
Yeah.
now.
And what did you say about the postal service that one time?
Oh, yeah, the Postal Service.
The one group of people you really don't mind upsetting, let me tell you, because nothing bad's ever happened there. So here's the thing with
I don't
DJ
know. Ben
Humphries.
Gibbard seems pretty even-keeled to me.
They want to know how he can perform as a pass blocker. And Denver has a bunch of good edge rushers, and they're trying to win this game. Like, this seems like a good time to say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw the ball 50 times because all that matters, everything else that goes on in this game, besides health, there's literally only one thing that matters in this game. One thing. Yeah, you could say Jaden Hicks matters for next year. I get it. And it does because, I said it. But another thing, maybe see if Steven Nelson still knows how to play football, and you could tell Spags if he does. We could do that.
Over under 12 snaps for Joshua Uche. What do you think?
I don't know. If he gets on, that would be so terrible.
He might get 9 snaps while Felix gets 90%.
He's gonna get 9 snaps and 2 pressures, 1
Yes.
hit, and a sack.
Yes,
and everyone's
one
gonna be like,
strip sack. Like he'll drop back into coverage and get a pick.
he's gonna be Van Ginkel meets Nick Bosa, and we're gonna be like,
What?
Spags, I feel like there's some use for this guy. I don't know. But anyway, the biggest thing from this game, by far, can DJ Humphries play left tackle the way he would need to play left tackle in the playoffs at an average level? Because if he does, it makes the decision with Joe Thuney a pretty easy one.
Yes.
And so you got to drop back and pass, right? And don't just leave him on an island. Don't do like something different than what you do normally. But you got to call pass concepts just to see, hey Humphries, do you stink or no?
Hey, but what about that storyline? What about that sweet storyline? What about that? We never saw it coming. Is that what I think it is? A Hall of Famer player out of position for a three-peat? Oh, what a storyline! Josh, did you see Matt Nagy's? Matt Nagy said, "Oh, I'm so glad you asked me, Nate." Oh,
Yeah, Matt Nagy said, Joe Thuney's been incredible, and I will not acknowledge any differences in the ways that he and Kingsley Suamataia were put out there at left tackle this year. We will not be addressing that at this point. Let me propose something to you. I'm not going to tell you who said this until after I've said it, okay? So save your reactions, but I think you will have them. Back on Monday when I was filling in over on 96.5 The Fan, after I talked to Nate Taylor, but before I talked to Jordan Foote, or actually also after I talked to Jordan, I was talking to someone whose opinion I respect about a great many football things and many other things. And
I enjoy talking to you too, Josh.
I did a lot of talking to myself throughout that show. I asked about DJ Humphries in particular because I thought this person has a good background on the physical side and like the ball knowing side of what it takes to do that job.
yes.
I said, so is DJ Humphries like one of those only guys that you do actually want to see in Week 18, as this person was not looking to see very many players for the Chiefs in this game? And he said, no, I don't really need to see DJ Humphries do it on Sunday either. He's played a lot of football. I don't know that I need to see that. And if it was anyone other than Ryan Tracy, I would have had some second guessing. And you know what? Right?
Wow.
I'm mentioning him and crediting him on that because he is the outlier, and I am still inclined to say, let's get a half of DJ Humphries out there. And even if it's not next to Joe Thuney, even if it's next to Caliendo, even if it's blocking for Carson Wentz, I'd like to see a little more, but I have to also use the people who I trust and respect the most when they are pushing against my priors. So that's my offer to you guys to keep this ball rolling.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to paint a picture, just a small picture.
Seth, this is actually a good time for you to sneak in your quick little nap you were planning.
Just a quick question, just a quick picture, right? Just a little self-portrait, but not really of me. With some violins, under me.
Is that hemorrhoid cream? What are you holding up?
What are you holding? He's
Take some vitamin C.
Taking vitamin C like some other powders. So, what's Southwest saying? No, what is Southwest saying?
Okay, Nate has a flight problem. Seth, quick. You want to see DJ Humphries play left tackle on Sunday while Nate looks at his flights?
Oh no!
I want to see it. Here's the thing. Ryan is someone...
Southwest is just telling me, hey, bro, don't even pack.
So, I'm sorry to hear that, Nate. I want to see DJ Humphries. I respect Ryan as much as I respect basically anyone in our field, and he understands the physical therapy aspect of stuff. And he understands the health stuff.
He also doesn't want him to aggravate a soft tissue thing in the hamstring.
Right.
I'm glad you mentioned that because Ryan did mention that. Back to you, Seth.
Even with the 2-week bye week leading up, it could still be not great.
Right. And so that makes sense. And here's the deal. They can see him in padded practice. They can do all sorts of things in terms of, all right, hey, we're going to, I had this idea before to see if he's in game shape. We're going to have you do 10 straight pass pro reps against George because he never gets tired, and I'm sure it's really annoying. And then we're going to have you do 3 against Charles Amenahu, and we told him that you said he was never going to make it back from his ACL. And so that dude is mad, and he's coming for you. And so, you can do that and see how he performs. And Andy Reid and Andy Heck, I imagine, are much more confident in their ability to assess practice to game performance. So I get that. But still, I would like to see him for at least a little while. What does it look like in a game? Players are the first ones to tell you, and coaches are the first ones to tell you, that practices, the games, are different. They just, no matter how hard you try to simulate live conditions, you just can't do it. It's not the same. So I would love to see him out there for a quarter. I understand the soft tissue thing's a big deal. He has a hamstring thing. You want him to be as ready to go as humanly possible, because best case scenario for the Chiefs, and I just need to tell people this over and over and over again, is that DJ Humphries can play average left tackle, because then you can massively upgrade your left guard spot. Massively upgrade it. Caliendo, appreciate what he's done. He's doing the best he can. He's having to replace an all-pro, but he's not an all-pro. He's been probably a little below average.
Storylines, though.
He's been the second lowest ranked guard and second lowest graded guard from PFF during his 3 starts. Just for whatever.
But the storylines.
Oh my gosh.
We got a writer. We got a writer and a film guy here. I don't understand what you're about. What Seth seems like he's caught off guard. Maybe it's finally made sense to me. Is that by just simply wearing a T-shirt that just says storylines on it, Nate is wearing a number 69 storylines jersey for this show every day, and maybe that's what actually is locking all of this into place. Nate's not here for all this box score, beyond the box score. Who cares? You know what I need to see this in black and white on paper, written out with words. He's a storyteller, Seth.
I understand the story that you want to be able to tell is a three-peat. And the best chance at a three-peat is with average left tackle play and elite left guard play. That's your best chance. So we'll see. I'm in the middle of charting all of Mahomes' snaps for the last 3 weeks, and some of the narratives that exist about how much more comfortable he looks in the pocket with Joe Thuney, they're partly true, but they're partly not. They just have a lot fewer straight-up pass pro reps. Like Mahomes taking a 5 or 7 step drop in an obvious passing down situation with no rolling pocket, with no sliding protection, no help from the tight end. There's just not a lot of those. And why would there be? It would be insane to do that to Thuney. That would be nuts. And so I'm just saying, I'm going to keep hitting the drum on that. And I'm sorry I've dragged this far afield of wherever.
Yeah.
I almost kept a Dayquil thing right next to me just so I could sit here and chug it while we went, and I went against that.
That's good. So, Nate, is your flight still happening? We covered, just to follow up on Tuesday's story and the notification you just got. Are you still leaving in time to get there in time for the game?
This message is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Quote, your Southwest flight on January 5th may be affected by potential weather conditions. For more info and travel options, please visit Southwest.com. Now, when they send you that, kids, that's just to let you know, hey, bro, don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah, you still have to get here, but when you get here, you may not leave.
Hey, you might not want to pack. Straight up. Now, I saw today, after I believe it was maybe Steve Spagnuolo. Steve Spagnuolo was wondering what time it was for today's press conferences. I dipped out because I didn't need Steve Spagnuolo today. I wanted to see what the vibes were before one of the most meaningless games in the Patrick Mahomes era. And, you know, it's not every day that head of security comes through. What was his name? Mr. Schaefer? I can look this up. It's like, hey, like, there's glasses and there's other glasses. And you're like, I don't know. I mean, what we doing? Brian Schaefer walking through the door. What's happening? Why did I just try to do a DMX impression?
I don't know.
Andy Reid rolls out. And I'm just like, all right. Good day to you, coach. And there's another large gentleman behind you, and y'all seem to be going to the same elevator. Now, I don't have the time, the patience, the want to get to the bottom of this. Why is DJ Humphries, Brian Schaefer, and Andy Reid going into the same elevator?
I think 2025 might be the year of taking a break on a cliffhanger.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Let's talk about a couple of guys actually, you know what? Let's go 2 gears down here because this has been floating around our consciousness for a couple episodes now, and we're going to let Seth talk about the thing that he wrote in the Chief in the North newsletter, taking a look at the defense. The defense, Seth, remember the defense? Chris Jones wasn't out there on Christmas, but the defense was still pretty good, and you could be led to believe, without the benefit of context and game situation, that maybe the Chiefs' pass rush just got better without big old 95 in the middle and they're freelancing doing his old little rope-a-dope nonsense, or maybe there's more to it than that, Seth.
I'm glad you asked. Here's the long and short of it. So I charted every snap where the Chiefs got some pressure on Russ Wilson. And I would like to just say, this isn't like if you're ever trying to figure out how should I analyze football, well, you should do it just like me. No, I'm kidding. But what you ask yourself, what is the information I'm looking to obtain? Okay, I'm looking to obtain, why did the Chiefs pass rush look so much better against the Steelers? Okay, so then what you need to do is find the snaps where the Chiefs got pressure on Russell Wilson, figure out when it happened, and figure out how it happened. And then you can answer, why did the pass rush look better? Was it actually better? Because you have to ask yourself every time you get done watching a game live, did the thing you think happened a lot actually happened a lot? Or did it just happen a couple of times and you really remembered it? I've had games where afterward I was like, man, that player was everywhere. And then you like watch the film, you're like, man, that player showed up on 2 snaps. But boy, were they memorable. And that's the way you want to be able to, the reason you chart stuff is to quantify what you previously were just utilizing vibes.
Vibes.
Yeah. And so what I did is I went back, looked at every snap by the defense, figured out what snaps they got pressure on Wilson and why. So there's a few things that happened against Pittsburgh. Let's go, I guess, what people might consider quote-unquote bad news first. The pass rush did not suddenly develop into this unstoppable force of nature without Chris Jones. That would be awesome. That's not really what happened. I charted 19 snaps where they got pressure out of 49 dropbacks by Russ Wilson. That's a pretty good rate. It's not like elite, but it's pretty good. Like very good even, one might say. Here's the one thing to note about that, though. only 9 of those came before the start of the fourth quarter, where the Chiefs had a 2-score lead.
Where you could pin your ears back. Yes.
Yep, and that's why that becomes important. 4 of their pressures came in garbage time. They had a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter. They were dropping 8 guys and just rushing 3, and they were still getting it. I mean, that's just when you can pin your ears back, where you don't have to fear the run game anymore, where you don't have to fear play action much, where there's a reason why you end up with better sack numbers, pressure numbers, etc. when you're generally winning games. That's one reason the Chiefs pass rush has gotten a little bit statistically propped up in recent years, because they're winning a lot of games, guys. So here's what I will say, though. So that's kind of the bad news. The frequency of pressure was good, but it was somewhat situational. Here's the good news, though. Guys like Mike Dana and Tershawn Wharton, who started off the season pretty hot and then's kind of faded off a little bit, they showed up. They had multiple one-on-one wins on their own. FAU, Felix, in addition to the sack heard round the world, we'll call it. It was like, where did that come from? Just bent around the corner, and it was just
edge?
off the edge, corner. Like JJ Watt was like, that cornering right there, that's the stuff. That's what changes it from a pressure to a sack.
Which is especially impressive considering that he's not named JJ Enudike Uzama.
And so that is the good news. You had some guys winning one-on-one a little more than they normally do. Another guy who did that, George Karlaftis. He won a couple of one-on-ones. Here's the thing with Karlaftis. Generally speaking, he will do everything you want. He'll have power. He'll execute the scheme. He'll be good against the run. He's got athleticism, so he gets cleanup pressures, hits, and sacks. But he doesn't win very many snaps one-on-one. If he just even wins 1 or 2 extra, which is what he did against Pittsburgh, that's great news. But the biggest thing I found in terms of why the Chiefs looked like they were getting so much more pressure against the Steelers, it's because their coverage was better. That was the biggest thing. And that's kind of like, one could view it as a good news, bad news thing. I view it almost exclusively as a good news thing, because I didn't have any expectation that the pass rush would be better without Chris Jones. That would be weird. Now you can get a one-off game plan.
Weird
that
things
sort of
don't happen around this football team.
yeah, nothing weird ever happens. And there is something to be said for, I think, everyone realizing they need to step up, having a more cohesive plan instead of maybe being a little over reliant on one guy. There's a lot to be said for that. But when you look at a ton of it, and you can see it in the Chief of the North newsletter, I utilized multiple plays to show an example of this. There were multiple snaps where they were rushing 4 guys, and Wilson just had nowhere to go with the ball. And so he holds it for an extra second. And like one of Tershawn Wharton's quarterback hits, I mean, he drops back and he looks left, he looks right, and everyone is covered. I mean, Trent McDuffie has George Pickens in a torture chamber. Everyone else has picked up their guy. They're running a terrific disguise on the play that I'm watching right now, where in advance they show a cover 2 shell, like they're going to be running a cover 2 zone look. And then right before the snap, they rotate a deep safety, and then they rotate, I think it's Justin Reed, into man coverage on the boundary. And then they rotate Chris Roland Wallace into a man slot coverage look. And it's just, they go from a zone look to a man look across the board. And all the routes that the Steelers are running are zone beater routes. And that matters a ton, because man coverage versus zone beating routes, it's a huge difference.
Yes.
And when you got one guy like McDuffie that can just put the clamps on their best receiver, it's a beautiful thing. There were multiple snaps like that where the Chiefs just won in the back 2/3 of the field, and Wilson just had nowhere to go. And so he went, 1, 2, pressure. And so if the coverage was holding up 3, 4 seconds, that allowed, not all, but often, some of these pressures to get home. And one reason I would say that that's good news is it was really terrific execution with the disguises that Spags loves to use in a way that I'm not sure they've been as good at this year, and they haven't had as much luck with, and you could kind of see the plan coming together a little bit. You can see, Chris Roland Wallace and Josh Williams executing some of these looks and rotating some of these deep safety looks and that kind of stuff. You could see them doing it in a way that was messing with a veteran quarterback's head, and you love to see it. Now, Pittsburgh's offense is very hit or miss. So it's not like they didn't do this to like the Bengals, right? With stud receivers all over the field. But it was really encouraging to see. And that to me was a much bigger takeaway than the actual pass rush. And yeah, I think that's everything I have to say on that. I feel tired.
That makes sense. The little follow up and sort of next question for me was going to be how much of that is Steelers related, at least, which you just mentioned, and the specific aspect of the Chiefs maybe getting and Spags maybe getting a little bit more confidence back schematically, as you mentioned there at the end. So you got to the two things that I wanted to make you talk about if you hadn't already. Nate, what stands out to you from that? I don't know if you've gone back to revisit the Christmas game in the 6 months it's been since that happened or what, but what of those defensive steps do you think is legitimate and that will continue to see through the playoffs? What might have been a one-off?
It could be tied to the fact that Joshua Williams, I mean, even the PBU, which didn't get discussed, where he's basically playing deep half in essence.
Yep.
I think there's something to be said, and I kind of tried to get some useful sound out of the Chiefs safety coach, who I
Donald DeLacio.
Donald DeLacio,
I may not be pronouncing it right, but
sorry, Donald, but he's been on the staff for a while now, and so what I tried to get out of him was how much of this is not only just you and Steve and Dave Merritt concocting these sort of disguised looks that were clearly meant to screw with Russell Wilson's head, which were clearly meant to make George Pickens have to think more than just, see ball, go get ball, jump ball, deep ball, I go get ball. They wanted to like mess with him mentally. On top of you guys doing that, how much of this is tied to Justin Reed's ability to get everybody to do what they're supposed to do late in the year, like he's done the last 2 years? And Donald basically said he's great. He's coaching everybody. So whether that's Chris Roland Wallace, obviously we saw the great success that Shamari Connor had playing next to, in not a great situation. Shamari Connor had to play next to Justin Reed after Mike Edwards had a concussion in the divisional round early on against the Buffalo Bills. So when you have, and even Donald said, hey, when you have Nick Bolton, when you have a Justin Reed who can disguise things really, really well, and then also help your secondary be more tied together than what we've seen over the last few weeks, and doing it 3 and 11 days, I think that is there's consistent evidence to suggest that is something that you can carry, something that is sustainable and that is substantive, and something that I'm eager to watch, because if Jaden Hicks gets through the game just fine, he might be one of the biggest difference makers for this team's defense. Not the same way Mike Edwards was, because I think Mike Edwards stabilized things in a way that people generally might forget. Mm-hmm. But I mean, even Donald was like, I mean, we just want you to celebrate with your teammates, Jay. We just want to celebrate with your teammates. We just want to celebrate your teammates. And I mean, he barked at him. I mean, he DMX'd him in front of everybody. It was not even Donald could be like, I mean, that's not my job. I don't even worry about the boys. I just say, hey, great play, young man. Great play. Arf, arf. Thumbs down. Arf.
That was awesome. I can't and I understand why the NFL has to call a penalty on that. That was pretty.
My child's watching the game.
But
my child might learn what it means to pantomime thumbs down.
Down.
Yeah.
Give him the double latte.
It's
in his face.
The very direct taunting. There was just something about him beating George Pickens in a jump ball situation that you're just like, wow, that's not easy to do. And
I didn't think anybody on the secondary could do that.
It also really highlighted what a big dude Jaden Hicks is. I mean, he is a big dude.
Big dog.
So it's an interesting thing. One final note. Someone asked about this. One thing they're doing a little more of that I really hope they find a way to do a lot of more of is finding a way to get Trent McDuffie into the slot. If you can find two guys you can trust on the boundary, depending on the matchup, because teams have picked on them in the interior, and something they had that helped the defense just go into God mode last year was, oh, well, we love Snead and Watson as our boundary corners. They're excellent boundary corners, and you are going to try to get a mismatch by moving your receiver to the slot. The problem for you is we have one of the best coverage defenders in the NFL there, and you're just not going to exist, Deebo Samuel.
That's a nice point, Seth, or it would be if the Chiefs did have one of the best cover corners in football. But Trent McDuffie isn't, because he's not a Pro Bowler. I just looked it up. Pro Bowl voting, Pro Bowl results came out today, and Trent McDuffie's not on this list. He's a first alternate right there with Patrick Mahomes. So Trent McDuffie and Patrick Mahomes, not Pro Bowlers, but the Chiefs' 3 interior offensive linemen. At least there's their original starting interior 3. Tooney, Creed, and Trey Smith, all Pro Bowlers, along with Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. It was Kelce and Trey Smith, I believe, who aren't starters, but the other 3 should be in the starting lineup there. Mahomes, McDuffie, Bolton, fullback Carson Steele, Karlaftis, Ariza, Chanel, and Butker, all alternates of varying depths. But I know Seth has been, well, he talked a little bit about Coach of the Year this time a week ago, and then had us plan the whole show around Coach of the Year before he tapped his helmet and said, I need a breather, my tummy hurts, I need a week off, whatever. And so we can get to Coach of the Year. I'm getting here early to save you the time for it, Seth. But Travis Kelce, or actually Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie, not Pro Bowlers. Thoughts?
I'm here's a hot take. I can understand a little more easily, even though it's still not right.
Don't say it.
I can understand a little more easily.
No, because I got the stats.
Mahomes.
I got the stats to prove it. Don't say it.
Let him get it clean.
What are you talking about? What you doing?
I can understand a little more easily.
He's a Pro Bowler.
Mahomes not being a starter.
Joe Burrow cannot do it in the fourth quarter the way he can.
Nate, it's a good bit, but you're currently getting in the way of Seth hates Patrick Mahomes discourse. That's going to be super clippable here if we just let him get it clean.
Hey, you might stop talking. You might want to stop talking. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Arf. Arf.
There's a better rationale for Mahomes not being a Pro Bowler starter as opposed to Nate. For the love of God, there's a better
rationale. I'm mad at him. You should be thanking him.
There's a better rationale for it than there is Trent McDuffie not being a starter. And here's why. The guys who made it, Allen, Burrow, and Jackson, have all had phenomenal years to where you can at least try to point to baseline statistics that no one should really look at when they're trying to analyze quarterbacks. And that's, how you gauge things. They've all had phenomenal years, excellent quarterbacks, really, really, really good players. You can make an argument. Now, should Mahomes still be in there? Absolutely, 1,000,000% yes. But with McDuffie, he is so much better. He is so much better than the guys who got in above him. It is so not even close.
Put their names out on the street, Seth. Put them on the street.
Anyone not named Surtain, McDuffie is twice the corner they are. The guys that are on the AFC roster. It's not close. It's not remotely close. You got Surtain and McDuffie and a massive gap between them and the rest of those guys. And that's the thing where Mahomes is better than all the guys that went ahead of him in the Pro Bowl voting. Make no mistake. But they can someone could ignorantly at least point to base quarterback stats and say, well, that's why I'm voting for him. With corners, you have no excuse. And that's where it's just like, man, this is not, you can turn on the film and it's obvious that Mahomes is better than those other guys. But whatever. Fine. Those guys have played at a high level. Mahomes has had a few tougher games this year. I guess he's been better this year than he was last year, and he made it last year, but whatever. With McDuffie, I'm more angry about that. In part because Mahomes has made the Pro Bowl every other year. Mahomes is going to the Hall of Fame. And this is why people are like, oh, I don't get worked up about the Pro Bowl. Here's the thing. one of the first things people reference when they're talking about Hall of Fame case, especially at corner where you don't have the same statistical baselines to look at, is
Correct.
Pro Bowl nods and All-Pro nods. And McDuffie is objectively one of the best 2 corners in football right now. AFC, NFC. That actually makes me more upset than Mahomes not getting the nod, because at least you have 4 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, in the AFC, which really they're probably the 4 best in the AFC too.
Hey Josh, is the objective of the game to win said game?
It depends on what month it's in. Another part of it for Trent McDuffie that Jordan Schultz tweeted a little bit earlier, obviously the Pro Bowl is kind of a joke at this point, but Trent McDuffie, no Pro Bowls, so his 5th-year option is about $12.7 million. If he had made 1 Pro Bowl, it would be 17.1. If he had made 2, it would be over $20 million. So 2 bad sets of ballots have cost Trent McDuffie $8 million, $7 million guaranteed, essentially. Now, look, the Chiefs are going to make sure he's not going to play out that 5th-year option year.
Not at this point. No, not at this point.
But the Chiefs' entire leverage is more significantly in their favor with a $13 million. Hey, Trent, we will happily pay you $13 million in your 5th-year option. That first-year cap hit's going to be lower, as opposed to, yeah, I'm sitting here with a $20 million, a deserved $20 million cap hit that would change the scope of that negotiation, because it changes the starting point. The thing about this that does actually bother me is that this isn't what the Chiefs do. This isn't Trent McDuffie's agent. This is like rookie wage scale stuff. And so the NFL from the top is saying this thing that is 1/3 fan voted, and then also the way we know how all the NFL players shouldn't be doing the NFL 100, because they're not watching every other game and their own position. That's impossible. It's impossible.
They can't possibly do it.
I need Patrick Mahomes watching nothing but the Carolina Panthers defense 1 week out of the year. So I don't need him to rank like the 5th best tight end in football. That's silly to me. But this part matters, because the NFL has said this is how we want to do business, and it's costing Trent McDuffie money.
Yep. And it matters for legacy and that kind of stuff too.
Yes.
And so again,
they really put Marlon Humphrey. Oh, I haven't even looked at the list. They put Marlon Humphrey.
And Marlon Humphrey, when Marlon Humphrey in Trent McDuffie's 2nd year in college was better than Trent McDuffie, maybe. Trent McDuffie's college film was awesome too, though. So.
What? What? Have you seen the Ravens secondary this year?
Yeah. And so the whole thing, I am curious though, because Nate,
what?
You were very
Holy smokes. I'm sorry. Yo.
So Nate, you were very chagrined at me not being more chagrined by Patrick Mahomes being the 4th man out, which he should have. You had mentioned 4th quarter stats. I would love to hear it, because people that don't know ball love to point to basic stats about quarterbacks, which, by the way, if you do it over a 5-year period, yeah, that can tell you quite a bit about a quarterback. 5 or 6 year period.
Hold on,
Ravens
Dr. Ozzy, I gotta
5 Pro Bowlers.
I gotta check that they got 5 Pro Bowlers.
They have the most Pro Bowlers.
What?
Hey,
Bro, who's voting? Bro,
I just want people to know. I see your tweets and your Blue Sky posts and all of this, and sometimes we try to do it. Every once in a while, it comes down to Nate's mic technique. I don't know. Sometimes he gets really excited and he leans in, and sometimes he gets really whispery and I don't know. But this is just this is a discourse we have to have open here.
How do we only have? I don't know how any of this stuff works. How we only got 3 defensive ends? What? I guess because we did outside linebackers. I mean, okay, but
Joshua Uche and George Karlaftis play the same
how
position.
Is Madam look, Nnamdi Madam BK is a great player. Have you seen Derek Wolfe this year? Has anybody seen him?
There was somebody else who got snubbed on the defensive tackle.
Holy smokes, people!
I've not gotten mad about anything other than the Mahomes and McDuffie parts of it, just to save myself the trouble.
Raekwon Smith, great big name, big contract, big contract. I hate to say this, but is there a tangible difference between him and Nick Bolton?
I don't want to agree with any Nick Bolton discourse that I'm not that
I'm
I have
just
not yet
asking.
run through my lawyer.
I'm just asking. So, I love Kyle Hamilton. I think he deserves to be on this list more than Marlon Humphrey. My God. I mean, Denzel Ward had a very good start to the first half of the season. He's tapered off due to injuries to some degree. But, yeah. Now, look, the game, the objective is to win the game. And... Yeah. By the way, did you see what the Philadelphia Eagles did to Roquan Smith? It was gaudy. So the objective is to win the game. All right. He's taken the most hits he's ever taken in his career. He has somehow limited his turnovers compared to the year prior when taking less hits. He has, I believe, entering this week, leads the league in 7 game-winning drives because, that's all the Chiefs play is close games. He has thrown the ball to more different teammates than any other quarterback in the bleeping league. And they're 15-1. They clinched the 1 seed on Christmas. He got his healthiest, he got some of his best skill position players healthy again. And then he had the best game of his season the very last time we saw him, right? So Joe Burrow is always going to be great. Again, do we watch
Citation.
The games? Huh?
Nothing.
That's all I'm asking at this point.
It's definitely interesting to me that the discourse surrounding Mahomes has been what it's been. And I think it's demonstrative of the way that we think about the sport in general. I think once inertia gets going and once takes are starting to fly, he threw, 8 or 9 picks early in the year?
It was 8 in the, it was 7 or 8 in the first 9 games or something like that.
I think he had 9 picks and 8 touchdowns at one point.
Yes.
And then since then he's had like 15 touchdowns and 2 picks, something like that. I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at PFR here. I really think that if you get to mid-season and there's a certain narrative around a player, you are starting from a place, you're starting from a disadvantage. And no matter how much analysis gets more refined, no matter how much we look more and more towards film or towards deeper stats, ultimately, baseline stats are how quarterbacks are going to be gauged. That's why, the Mahomes things, it doesn't shock me. There are 4 elite quarterbacks in the AFC. Maybe more, honestly. We've seen some guys take a step backward.
Did Joe Burrow evade his running back dying on behalf of him? Move to his left and then levitate to create a throwing window on a gotta have it 3rd down in prime time, no less.
It is an interesting thing to me, and wins are not just a quarterback stat, so I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth there. But it is an interesting thing to me, the number of narratives I see about how unstoppable certain players are and how tough to beat they look. And then I look at their team record and it's like, well, then how'd they lose 6 or 7 times? And how different that discourse is from the discourse that surrounded the Chiefs last year.
Yes.
Where they lost 6 or 7 times. And all the discourse was about how beatable they were. It's weird, but you know what? Someone said in the comments here, fatigue. I get it. It's boring to just talk about how great a team is over and over.
He levitated on a 3rd and gotta have it down with the game on the line in prime time. What are we watching?
I would like to read you a tweet. I'd like to read you a tweet from our friend Robert Remsen of Fox 4 that I believe illustrates this point in a very salient and precise way. Wow, only 5 Pro Bowlers on a 15-1 team? Sounds like that team must have the best coach in the NFL. Surely that guy's in the running for Coach of the Year. This is where it leaves me. You've got a team where the only Pro Bowlers are their interior offensive lineman, one defensive tackle, and a 35-year-old tight end who led the league in fan voting. I'll tell you what, man, you took the uniforms off, you said, I got a team, and these are their 5 best players. Their 5 best players are their interior offensive line, one defensive tackle, and their 35-year-old tight end. I would say enjoy the draft. I hope you have something to look forward to, and you may need a head coach. Maybe your GM is good, but has he considered getting good wide receivers or corners or safeties or, again, a quarterback perhaps? The quarterback's not in the MVP conversation. The head coach isn't really in the coach of the year conversation. A bunch of their best players are not in the conversation about the best players at a position group in the NFL, and they are the only team that has one loss on their record, that locked up the 1 seed on Christmas Day, and is going to have nearly a month of kind of twiddling their thumbs, waiting for their chance to three-peat. Like, not to win it's not like they've won their division 3 years in a row. You should really respect this team. We're talking about them three-peating with the same cast of characters they won the last 2 with, by and large. All of these Pro Bowl names are all familiar. So I would even ever so slightly disagree about how things are weighted in terms of awards, because sometimes you'll see a guy who can't overcome the first 8 weeks of narratives. And then sometimes you'll see a guy who has a great final 8 weeks, and suddenly Josh Allen's been the MVP this whole time. And he kind of was in the first, 4 weeks, and the last, 6 weeks, but there were 6 or 7 in the middle there that, it was Lamar three-peating, or we're going to get it to Saquon, how are we going to make this happen? And I just think it is generally that level of fatigue where people get bored of saying the Chiefs have the best quarterback, the best coach, and the best players. They do. They're not perfect, obviously. This show would be quite boring if they were. Thankfully, they were in no danger of that happening. But that to me, it is another compounding of the same thing that we've been talking about off and on now for years. And I don't know that it's going to get better. A three-peat might change some things from a legacy perspective, or there's just an inarguable nature to all of this that should already exist. So maybe I'm being hopeful for no reason, but it is a bizarre, frustrating, cloud lining in the midst of a bunch of silver. It should not take away from your experience of watching the greatest dynasty in all of modern American sports right now. But it is a weird thing that you kind of have to deal with. Seth, did you have anything else on the Coach of the Year front you wanted to specifically get to, or have you mostly made your points? Is there Andy Reid specific stuff before we wrap up?
I would just say that with Coach of the Year stuff, I will acknowledge out front that Kevin O'Connell over in Minnesota has a great argument for it.
Hey, watch that all 22 of the Vikings offense.
Incredibly impressive, and they obviously, they lost the guy that was going to probably end up being their starter, although they were claiming that Darnold would probably start this year. So I don't know if I can allow them to do that.
He was supposed to be this. He was supposed to be the same guy that, as wild as it is to say, that Jacoby Brissett was supposed to be. Hey, get us to October and let us reassess our rookie. Yes,
right. And then that's the thing, though, is when he got put in the right environment, it was like, oh, there's a reason he was the number 1 overall pick. Interesting. Number 3 overall pick. Dang it. I really had something cooking there. But so I will acknowledge that. But besides KOC, I don't think anyone else even has an argument for Coach of the Year. The Chiefs are 15-1. Maybe they'll be 16-1. Maybe, they're 15-1 in games they're actually trying to win. And it's even arguable they were even trying to win some of the games that they've played this year, where they're just like, let's just practice this. Why don't we just try that out, see what happens?
By the way, your guy Liam Cohen has the number 1 pick of that draft class, who's also had a resurgence. Interesting.
It's situation matters so much for these guys. And yes, there's a floor ceiling thing, but it's been an interesting year in understanding how important situation can be. And there's a ceiling that exists there. I want to see what it looks like for Darnold if you ever get into a game where KOC isn't 3 steps ahead, if that ever happens. Spags versus KOC in the Super Bowl would feed families for years, and also maybe tear my family apart.
Also, what's my guy gonna do on first down against Patrick Mahomes? Blitz. What's he gonna do on second down? Blitz. What's he gonna do on third down? Flores, show blitz, drop 8, pray to God.
Yeah. And so Here's what I would say with Andy Reid. No one in the league has had to deal with what Andy Reid has dealt with. And I wrote about this. The biggest thing, they've had to deal with this wide receiver roulette. They've had to change the offense multiple times throughout the course of the year. The patience that they've had with the development of Xavier Worthy, separate and apart from the wide receiver roulette, has been impressive. He's left his defensive coordinator alone as they went through cornerback issues. Sometimes the things you don't do are as important as the things you do. Mm-hmm. And Spags being left to his own devices was good leadership, because being a head coach is about more than X's and O's. It's about leadership. Are you not, dunking your finger in someone else's Kool-Aid because things aren't going well? And we see that all the time with head coaches. They're just looking for they're looking for a scapegoat. Every time Kyle Shanahan's quarterback has a bad play, we see him and I honestly, Shanahan's a great schematic coach, but honestly, I'm so tired of watching Kyle Shanahan throw his arms up in frustration and make so clear that his play call would have worked if it weren't for the terrible execution out there. That's dealing with so Reid does that. He does it quietly.
They had 4 Pro Bowlers.
Dealing with a fiasco at left tackle that was just a bummer. All of that would be reasons that Andy Reid maybe should deserve it. But most importantly, one thing he's dealing with that no one else in the league comes close to dealing with is trying to three-peat, trying to make history. We talked about this when we talked about why every Chiefs game can feel like a grind sometimes. It's that every snap feels weighted with importance. The level of expectations and fame, all these things that could tear apart other teams, the backbiting that can occur when things aren't going the way you want it to, none of that has gone on with the Chiefs. That's an incredible thing, and to me, no one else remotely has to deal with that level of, when you factor in injury luck, which has been really bad for them this year, when you factor in the kind of fiasco at one of the most important positions, at left tackle, when you factor in that along with the pressure of a three-peat and then leading a team to 15-1, Andy Reid should be a pretty easy choice. And that's one thing that separates him from KOC in terms of what they've had to do in terms of leadership. KOC has gotten his guys to buy in. That is so impressive. He's done an incredible job, but he has not had to fight the type of pressure that exists in Kansas City. And that's what I think the separator should be. Because, and it's got to be someone, right? They're 15-1. Okay, fine. If they don't have an MVP, they don't have a defensive player of the year, if they don't have an offensive player of the year, they barely have any Pro Bowlers that are starters, then it's got to be the coach, right? Like at a certain point.
It's the 3 interior offensive linemen.
Take us home.
Good. You know what? We need the early bye too.
Joe Tootie's gonna feed families. Just you wait and watch.
Nate Taylor's family eats storylines. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Oh my God.
Or we'll keep talking to you now. Tucker, end it! End the show! I don't want to be here.
Feed my family, Joe Tootie. Feed them.
Tucker got a hold of some of my cold medicine.